The Pulse of Providence with Steph Machado on WPRI.com.
Hello, and thanks for watching Pulse of Providence. I'm Steph Machado. Back in September, Mayor Jorge Elorza named then Recreation Director Michael Stevens to a new high-ranking police job created to oversee community relations and diversion services. The appointment blew up into a political controversy between the mayor and the city council. There was a months-long stalemate over the position because it had originally been approved as a new police major job, and Mr. Stevens is a civilian. This past spring, the two sides finally agreed on an amended job title and description, and Mr. Stevens started in the job last month as the new Administrator of Community Relations and Diversion for the Providence Police Department. Here in studio to talk with me about this new role is Michael Stevens, and we're also joined by Major Kevin Lanni. Congratulations to both of you, Mr. Stevens, on your new job, and Major Lanni on your promotion.
Thank you for having us today.
And the reason you're here is because the two of you are going to be working together on this work. But before we go in depth on the work that you two are going to be doing, I do want to start with you, Director, because a lot has happened in the last 9 months or so since you were first offered the job, and this is our first chance to sit down with you. So I want to go way back to last year. Can you tell me, because you are not a police officer,
correct,
what made you even apply for this position that originally was billed as a new police major who was going to work on community relations, diversion, and also oversee training and recruitment was the original job?
Right. First, thank you so much for having me. It's my first time being able to tell you I'm so blessed to be here to even talk to you about this. Just a couple of things I just want to bring up. Remember when the George Floyd incident went on, and then we had the looting in Providence? 12 o'clock in the morning, me, my son, and my wife drove around the neighborhood and seen what was going on downtown Providence. And I looked at my son at that time and I said, son, this is not how that you want to be able to show people how to act. What you want to do, you want to do it in a better way. And that was something that I learned. I said, we are having our police officers being treated bad by something that didn't happen in Providence. And I felt that if I was able to have an opportunity to be able to speak to the community and just let them know what type of people they are, I can help mend those bridges between the police and the community.
And so when you saw the job description, how did it end up that you applied for the job? Did someone tell you we might hire a civilian for this police major job?
Not really. I went online and I saw that the job was posted, and I thought it was posted for honestly a police officer, but it wasn't posted for anybody. So I put my application in and I applied for the job.
And I believe there were police officers and others who were in contention. Were you surprised that you were offered the police major job?
I was surprised. I was blessed. I was blessed to have an opportunity to be offered the job, but also blessed to go through the process that everybody else went through. And I'm just happy to be here to talk to you about it.
And I want to clear up something that came up from city council leaders. Were you ever on the hiring committee for this position?
So I was in they had an organization meeting, one organization meeting. After that organization meeting, then I withdrew my name from being on the organization, and then I applied for the position.
Okay, did you expect the backlash that happened as soon as you were announced for the job? Were you expecting that kind of backlash?
You know something, nothing surprised me. In my life, that's basically anything I did, it was some type of backlash in anything I did in my life, so I'm okay with that. It's just people have their opinions and you have to respect respect their decisions of what they feel. Like I gotta say, for instance, like the FOP president, Mike Mundy, who I have so much respect for, he's supposed to fight for his officers. That's his job. You know, they're supposed to fight for their officers. So I felt like I wasn't mad about it. I just felt the fact that everyone has their opinion. You have to respect what they feel.
So did you sort of understand the criticism of?
Totally did.
Because major is one of the highest titles, and again, you're not a major, but that's what the original job was. It's one of the highest titles in the police department, so it was, I think, an initial expectation from the rank and file that someone would be promoted.
Right. I respected that. I understood it. I respect those men and women that felt some type way. That was okay with me. I looked at it as a community guy, a guy that can help the community, a guy that can mend the bridges between the police department and the community. That's what I looked at in that position. It wasn't about me wanting to be a major. You can give me any title. I just wanted to mend bridges between the community and the police department.
So now that you've started the job, again, with the new civilian title, you're going to be working with Major Lanni on community relations and diversion services. And tell me again the name of the new bureau that you
Community Operations Engagement is the name of the bureau.
So tell me about the work that you're doing together.
So Mike has deep roots in the community, and we're working together to expand our community police model, which we've been very successful at over the years, working with our partners, our collaborative partners. We have so many partners, I can't even begin to name them. And Mike so far has been great, and I expect him to even do better at reaching out to the community and having some tough conversations about police-community relations. We built many relationships over the past decade with you, Clemens, being our chief. He's really pushed this department forward in the area of community policing, and built and looked at ways that we can do things better by asking our partners what they need from us and our community what they need from us. I look at what we've done with recruiting a diverse workforce to reflect our city, and I think we've come a long way as a department to be a leader in New England, around the country, in law enforcement. Mike is a great addition to that, and he's going to be a voice for the community to the police department and voice their concerns. They may be more comfortable talking to someone like Director Stevens than they are with talking with the uniform officer. And he also will be a voice for the police department to the community. I think that will be a critical part of Mike's success. It already has been in his career with the city, and I think moving forward, it's no better time than now, after we see the tragedies around the country in Buffalo and the hate crimes and fear in the community, to have someone like Director Stevens to help engage the conversation with the community.
And Mike, tell me about your new job. What is it exactly you'll be doing?
So I'd like to bring up two things, so that's very important that helped me to be able to do this job well. I think of me being a young guy growing up at 17, 18 years old, coaching so many kids in the city of Providence. And I remember when, a mom and dad was in the house with their 6-year-old son, and their 6-year-old son sees the police officer come in their house and take their father away. Just think about that. They take their father away. Now that 16-year-old kid sees his mom hurt, upset, crying. Now we go forward 10 years. Mom's working 2 jobs trying to make ends meet. Father goes to jail for 10 years. Now this kid's 16 years old. He's trying to find love. He couldn't find it because mom was working too many jobs because she was trying to take care of home. Where he finds love at is the streets. What does the street give him? Time to act out. Go in gangs, drugs, whatever. That's something that I feel that I want the police officer to understand, that we have to follow up on those situations. We got to make sure that we feel those young kids, that we don't want them to be the next statistic. We don't want to see them dying in the street. I don't want to see any more of my basketball players dead anymore. I want us to be able to help them so they can be able to blossom in life. Same as I want the community to understand. I was riding around with Sergeant Mike Clary for 6 nights. 6 nights. And when I talk to him and I see the work that those men and women do, people forget that they're human. Their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents, their mentors. We forget that. And you know what he said to me? He says, Mike, I got 3 beautiful kids. Do you know what I want to do? I just want to go home safely every night to see my kids. And I need to tell the community that, to understand that they're human, they're there to do a job. So if I can really work hard and mend those bridges and let them both understand each other's struggles, I think I can do a great job.
Did you grow up in Providence?
Yes, I did.
When you were a kid and a teenager, how did you see the Providence police? What was your view of them?
I didn't have a view on because I never had to deal with them. I was always that young kid that was under mom. I was a mama's boy. I was under mom and always doing things for mom, But I was afraid at times because I knew if I did something wrong, I was going to be in trouble. I was afraid. I knew a lot of my friends did wrong things. God rest their soul. A lot of them died of gang violence. But I'm just happy that I had a mom that taught me to understand the fact that either you want to be a leader or you want to be a follower. And I choose to be a leader in my life because I want to make sure that I showed my mom that I can do something and I can be somebody. That's something I always had. And she told me this story. She says, Mike, you can fool everybody, but you can't fool the man in the mirror. And that's what I live by.
So is the goal, when you talk about kids being in fear of the police, is the goal to change the attitudes about the police, or is your goal to make change in the police department?
The goal is both. Communication. It's not one. It's not the police, not the community. It's communication. We need to know how to communicate. I need to teach the young kids and young men to say, if you get pulled over by a police officer, please just follow their command. Follow their command. Things will not happen if we just follow commands. And also, police officers, engage into the community. Engage when there is a situation where you can just see that young kid riding a bike and just say, hey, how you doing? Because a lot of times is communities be standoffish with police officers because we need to work on engagement and communication.
I want to talk about the diversion services part of all this. Can one of you define for me, what is diversion?
So, diversion takes on many roles in our department. So we look at our co-response model that we currently have in place. We've had it in place for years with the Providence Center. That's one form of diversion, riding with a mental health professional, dispatching those calls to the fire department when they're needed and rescue. Also, Mike brings another layer to the table when it comes to programs for young people, getting them engaged in activities on their downtime so they don't fall into the pattern of the streets being their mentor or their guide for their values. So with the programs that Mike has run over the years, I think that'll be a good introduction for a lot of young inner city youth that are looking for an outlet for activities.
And you mentioned the Providence Center. They were recently contracted as they're going to have 2 clinicians joining the public safety department. One of them is going to be in the fire department, but the other one's going to be in dispatch. Are you 2 involved in that pilot program?
So Mike and myself are involved in anything that engages the community, and that's something that means a lot to the community right now. We all see the crisis going around the country with mental health and the issues with police responding, and riding with a mental health professional and having their accessibility, not just to take the call in the call center and triage what is needed for the call, but also having them with us respond so they can help us identify and maybe tailor our response to the situation.
So has that started already, having dispatch divert certain calls to the Providence Center?
Well, we've been doing it for years, riding with the Providence Center. The Colonel Clemens had put that into place, and the mayor for years we've been doing that.
But I guess I mean the new pilot program.
The new program with a dispatcher, with a healthcare provider in the dispatch, I believe is currently underway. So,
okay.
And they may divert calls to the fire department when needed that don't need a police response, and they'll be with us to respond, and the fire department.
And explain why there seems to be a consensus that it was best to put the healthcare provider riding with a firefighter. Why is that?
Well, we're first responders. We're both first responders, so we arrive on scene pretty quickly. They've already been with the police. The healthcare providers from the Providence Center have already been with the police and responded to calls for service. They do an excellent job at de-escalating and educating our officers on things to look for and different alternative ways to handle it. That partnership has been critical for us as a police department to serve the community that may be having mental health crisis or a loved one that's having a crisis. So we were looking to expand on that as a city because we saw the benefit of bringing in healthcare providers, and there's other programs that we work with. There's so many we can mention, like working with the Institute for Nonviolence and that partnership and what that's done, and the recreation department. There's just so many partnerships that the Colonel has developed over the years, and they've just made our community safer and made us more in harmony with our community.
Part of this diversion conversation came out from the PFM report a couple of years ago that found that a lot of police hours were being spent on non-emergency or non-violent calls, and that some of those calls could be handled, like we've been talking about, by mental health providers or social service providers. But the mental health system is also pretty overburdened. So how do we envision that working, being able to eventually shift more of those, again, non-emergency, non-violent calls into the mental health system? Do they have the capacity for that?
I think the community and people in charge of budgets see that it's needed to have that capacity, but I will say that co-response model is the most important part, because there are situations, most situations, when we're responding to someone in a mental health crisis where police are needed. There are other people there that may be in fear or vulnerable to someone that's having a crisis, so the police need to respond for many of those calls still. But the ones that do not need police services they can free up some of our resources by having a mental health provider from the Providence Center respond.
We have a new police recruit class expected to go through the academy sometime in the next year. How will you two be involved in that? Will there be new training related to these new initiatives?
So we've developed a pretty progressive curriculum. I would say we have one of the most progressive curriculums in the country. And that was developed with our partners. We listened to the community, see what was needed. We've had LGBTQ competency training for the whole department, explicit bias training. There's just been so many additions to our curriculum. Mike will have a voice for the community to look at our curriculum and see how we can even make it better by adding certain trainings that maybe we were lacking in the past. We don't say we do everything perfect. So we definitely could improve on our curriculum. Everyone can, every law enforcement agency can, but I'd say we've been the leader when it comes to developing a progressive curriculum and engaging the community on what it is they want to see from their officers.
Sort of a general question for both of you, but Providence, like many urban centers, has sort of two sets of people. We have people who say they don't want to be policed. They're not super happy with having police at their events in their neighborhoods. And then other folks who say we need more police on the streets. Every time a shooting happens, we hear from neighbors saying we don't have enough police in my neighborhood. I want more police. How do you navigate both of those interests when you're trying to create a better relationship with respecting both sides, I guess, of those opinions?
Steph, that's a great question. But I think that we need more communication to our community. We need communication. We need to tell the story. We need to talk to each other. We need to have police officers show up without a uniform on, and they wouldn't even know that they're police officers, where they're just going and they're just communicating with them. And now come back the next day, they have their uniform on. People wouldn't even know it. They got to know that the police officers are human. That is the key point, I think it is. So simple. They would not feel that way. I'm just being honest. If a person just showed up without a uniform and they're police officers, they would not feel that way. And it's sad because it's a uniform. It's the uniform that makes people feel uncomfortable. Listen, I'm a referee, okay? And people sometimes they say, oh, refereeing and policing is different. No, it's not. It's not different, because when you put a uniform on, people already look at you differently. They look at you differently in this community. I'm telling you, I'm pumping gas.
So what's the solution? Should we be putting officers on the streets in polos?
No, I don't think so. I think engagement. Engaging with them. Why are you upset? Why don't you like? Tell me, how can I help you? Me, that's the guy. That's the guy who's going to try to mend those bridges, to talk to the community and say, why? Tell me why. What have they done wrong? What did they do wrong? Let's not talk about what happened in other states, in other country, whatever happened with police officers. But it didn't happen here. We need to support our men and women here. They need support. They don't need to be beat up. They need support. And we can't think any isolated incident that we think is the whole police department. That's the thing. One isolated incident, everybody's blamed. And that can happen in any job that we do. Any job we do. I can make a bad co-referee and they're going to say all referees stink. It's the same thing. And we just have to constantly educate, communicate our community.
What do you think, Major?
Well, I think our community police model and what we've done over the years, having officers assigned to a post and knowing the business owners and residents in their area and being able to engage them on a regular basis so they know each other by first name, has been critical in us developing relationships where the public feel good about the police officers in their community. And then also, I would point out our recruiting efforts. We recruit young, diverse group of people from the inner city to join the police department. They already come to us with deep roots in the community, relationships, and I think recruitment, our success with recruitment and our last 3 academies being the most diverse academies we've had in the Providence Police Department history has been critical to our success in being able to be more present in the community and have that good relationship.
Well, it's been a great conversation. I want to thank you, Michael Stevens, new Director of Community Relations and Diversion Services. It's a mouthful. And Major Kevin Lanni, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
I look forward to watching the work you guys are working on unfold. And thank you for watching Pulse of Providence. We'll see you next time.